Welcome to the Contractor's Scout podcast by Property Reputation, a bilingual podcast for contractors where the pros share their business expertise. Bienvenido al podcast de Contractor Scout or Property Reputation, un podcast bilingüe para los contratistas donde los profesionales comparten su experiencia empresarial. Now starting with your hosts, Mario and Lydia.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Contractor Scout podcast. In today's episode, we will be meeting Angel Guiler, an expert in payroll. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Thank you. So Angel, would you mind sharing a little bit about, your work, years of experience?
Sure. My name is Angel Guiler. I am a small business consultant. I've been doing it for a little bit more than 4 years now. Prior to that, I managed a large company with over 60 employees.
Okay.
So basically what I do is I help small businesses structure payroll and also HR.
Okay.
So all that things ties together where I'm able to kind of build them a platform to make sure that they're compliant.
Okay, so you help them build everything, pretty much the foundation, if you will.
Correct.
So, now that we know a little bit about that, what inspired you to work in the field of payroll?
I've always been a people person,
Mm-hmm.
and it came when I decided to make a move from my last employer to where I wanted to help businesses.
Okay.
And I started really researching and kind of get involved more in the business world.
Mm-hmm.
And I came across being a business consultant. So I educated myself to then cascade that information to our small business clients.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's been a journey to say the
absolutely.
least to come over, and that's how we met you. For those of you who don't know, we've known you for a few years now. So it's great to have you on here, and I'm looking forward to share all that info that you have packed into you.
Thank you.
With everybody else. So what kind of businesses do you serve? Like,
any businesses that have an employee, pretty much.
Okay.
So I work with construction companies, doctors, restaurants, manufacturing. So any type of company that has an employee, I can work with.
Okay. So you're the guy we call the go-to.
Yes.
So now that we're talking about structuring a business and then having the proper documentation, what exactly, what do you need to?
Yeah. So as a business owner, you want to make sure you register your business first.
Okay.
So you either go through an accountant or an employment attorney to make sure that you register the business through the IRS and the state. Once you do that, then I come in the picture, and you provide me with the letter 147C or the SS4, which gives me the EIN number of the company.
Okay.
And the state formation. So once I have that and a business account, I can go ahead and implement the services.
Okay. Now, since, from step one and then getting to know you, what would you say, the basic employee compliance would be when it comes to working?
As an employee, in the employee side, you want to make sure that a business has a payroll structure in place. That's number one, because overall that's going to help you in the long run. And I'm pretty sure once that structure is in place, it's a company that people want to continue to work for, and as an employer, they want to retain top talent. So you want to make sure you have that in place, and as an employee that's established.
Okay, so it's good to have that structure to show your employees that you're there for them.
Absolutely.
And then that keeping them is important.
Very important.
So for everybody listening, those are the key components.
Yes.
Would you mind explaining to us, now that we're starting to get into more of basics and then compliance, what are some of the forms that any business owner should know about?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I sit down with potential clients, one of the flaws that I always find is poor documentation or no documentation at all. So from the onboarding process, when you're going to hire an employee, you want to make sure you have key documents in place that you need to collect. One of them being a basic employment application. That's a must. You need to have that in place. An I-9. And I-9, it's really important because it's basically, as a business owner, you're doing your due diligence that person that you're about to offer employment is legally able to work here in the United States.
Okay.
Failure to provide that or have that on record could be a penalty per application.
Okay.
So that's really important. And a W-4, which basically gives us the breakdown of any withholdings, any exemptions, whether the individual is married or single, for tax purposes.
Okay.
So definitely you want to have that on file just to start.
Is there with that, as a business owner, I know there's a 1099.
Yes.
Do you need that for an employer?
So that's a good question. So a 1099 is a subcontractor. So basically what that is if you're going to hire an individual as a temporary project. So let's say you're really busy with something and you need extra help.
Okay.
So you would subcontract that work and have them fill out what it's called a W-9.
Okay.
That W-9, it's basically if they have an entity like an LLC, or if they're a sole prop, they would use their social. We're just reporting to the government that we paid them X amount of dollars for that project, and then they're responsible to do their taxes at the end of the year.
Okay, so this is definitely very important to know.
Right, so that's the proper classification. So they're you don't want to say a 1099 as an employee. They're not an employee to the company. It's an independent contractor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, like I said, this is a good form to have, especially, being that we cater to a lot of contractors here.
Yes.
So this is great for them to have on hand. Would you say, for example, for those who do like big home remodeling?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, that's really critical. When you have to subcontract that work out to an electrician or a plumber, you want to make sure you get that W-9 filled out and collect proof of workers' comp.
Okay.
Because what happens is when your company gets an annual premium audit from your workers' comp company, if you don't have those independent contractors' proof of insurance, then you're liable for it.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, that I didn't know.
Yes.
So that's good to know for everybody who's listening. If you are going to hire an independent contractor, make sure that they have
absolutely their proof of insurance of workers' comp. Yes.
Wow, that is interesting. I'm always learning something new, and I'm sure many who are listening are as well. Like the owners that are listening.
Yes.
What would you say is the difference between paying an employee weekly or bi-weekly when it comes to payroll?
Yeah, I think it's more on the type of work that they do. Depending on, like, for example, construction. Normally they would pay their employees weekly.
Right.
It's if it's more office setting, then normally they would pay themselves bi-weekly.
Okay.
So it all depends on the type of structure your business is.
Okay.
So basically when clients ask me, should I pay my employees weekly or bi-weekly? We just look at the trend on what their job is and how other employers pay their employees, because you always want to look at that. You want to be kind of in the same playing field as other companies.
Okay, so for our contractors, this is something very key. Let's remember that usually they do weekly, not bi-weekly, and that's a case to case, right? Not everybody is like a cookie cutter model, if you will.
Right.
Now that we're speaking about that, is there a difference in expense, or is it the same?
As far as if you have somebody doing the service for you, I mean, if you look at it in an overall, you're cutting 26 checks if you're paying bi-weekly in a year.
Okay.
As opposed to cutting 52 in if you're paying weekly. So that is a cost savings. It's small, but it's still a cost savings.
Okay.
So that's really the only difference that you're looking at based on the pay frequency.
Okay. Now, is there such thing as a monthly?
Yes, absolutely. I have clients that are S corporations.
Right.
I have clients that are employees and business owners. They pay themselves. So we would put those clients on monthly pay frequencies.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So There is the weekly, bi-weekly, and then we have the monthly.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Now, would you mind explaining to the audience, even the importance of compliance within the state of New Jersey?
No, that's one of the biggest topics that I go over with all my clients is the compliance behind it, because at the end of the day, we need to have that structure in place. As a business owner, the last thing you want is getting fines and penalties because you're not compliant. So it starts from documentation, right? That's from the beginning. Then it begins with the payroll tax deductions and continuing the process to having documentations in place. So that part, being compliant, educating yourself on the changes, is really critical to operating a business.
Right. So it is very important, to say the least, to have these things updated. What would you say, I guess, is like the one thing you come across the most when you come on board, when it comes to something like that?
With a lot of my new business owners, they're just starting their companies. They're clueless. They really don't have any idea what they're doing. So I come in and I help them. The most common thing is lack of documentation. They don't collect the proper documents to bring on board an employee. There's been times that I've come across a business client that doesn't even have a business account. So having a personal banker that you have a good relationship with it's really critical for your business. I actually work with one of my partners that I always bring to some of my appointments just in case they need a business banker there. If they have any questions on a business account, open lines of credit and stuff like that. So I help a lot of my clients in that end as well.
Right. Wow. That's always good to know that, there's not only do you do what you're there to help them with, but you go that extra mile making sure that everything is good on their end.
Absolutely.
So that way you can help them to the best that you can. I know we talked a little bit about withholdings.
Yes.
Correct. Would you mind because everybody sees that little pay stub.
Yes.
And it always has something on it. Would you mind explaining to us what it is and what it entails?
So from the employee side, it's basically, you have your federal income tax, your FICA, which is Social Security and Medicare, and you have your state income tax.
Right.
In lieu of that, you also have what is called state unemployment insurance.
Okay.
So basically, for every check that you get, they deduct a percentage from it, and it's basically if you ever need to use that insurance in case you go unemployed, you have that money there saved, so you can collect unemployment.
So would you say that the employer pays a portion of it?
So in New Jersey, the employee pays a portion, and also the employer.
Okay.
So it's both. It's a contribution of both.
Okay.
So if you're as an employee, you'll see that deduction there on your pay stub.
Right. So would it be safe to say that is it equal parts? Is it like?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the percentage varies depending. But yeah, it's about equal parts.
Okay. So what would the consequences be for the employer, the business owner, if they didn't or if they don't pay the withholdings to the state or
they're very severe.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen, and I'll give you an example. Last year, I was working with a business owner. Okay. And I've sat with her numerous times. She had an individual working there, paying them, cash.
Right.
And I kept telling her, it's, you're operating your business. You have somebody working here that's not an owner. You should put that person on payroll. No, Angel, I'm just going to continue paying her cash because my business is not ready yet. Okay, which is understandable with a lot of business owners. They're still trying to, manage the P&L. They want to see what expenses are. There's still construction. Right. So at the end of the day, there was an issue between the business owner and that person. Okay. And she called and tried to collect unemployment. Obviously, the employer never withheld any taxes. So it just opened up a can of worms. It opened up that business for an audit. Wow. And the state of New Jersey came in and she had to pay a lot of penalties, a lot of fines, because when they come in, they're just not going to look at, okay, you don't have you didn't pay any taxes. They
Okay.
also see that you didn't have workers' comp.
Right.
You know, you didn't have these trainings in place. So it's a
Right.
lot of things that go into place when they come to audit you. So you want to make sure you are compliant.
Right. It does not only, and I keep repeating this because it is extremely important. And before we sat down, you know, Mario isn't here, but we talked a lot about what it is that we need to bring to our contractors that are listening, because this is one of the most important pillars to
Sure.
your business, the administrative side. And we notice, you know, everybody's always on the run, always on the go. And yes, while in the contracting world, you want to, you know, get in a job, get out, and the more you take on to an extent, the better it is. And sometimes some business owners forget the admin side.
Right.
And that's where this comes in, where something happens, or it could be something very small, and then, like you said, a can of worms opened, and then they're left out, and they have no idea where to begin, and the frustration starts to set in.
Exactly. And even if, you know, if the employee gets hurt,
Right.
you know, if you're paying, you know, them cash and they get hurt, you're
Right.
liable for that employee's medical bills.
Right.
And that opens up for lawsuits, you know, other penalties.
Okay.
It's very severe. It's
Right.
really severe for a business owner.
It is, because in the realm, or at least in this industry, a lot of it is physical work.
Right.
So, you know, even with the smallest of business owners, you know, you have to have at least something.
Exactly.
Because like you said, you know, trying to get in from the beginning and try to see where that break-even point is as well is hard, but setting something in place is the most important part. Now that we talked about a little bit of the consequences, and we talked about benefits, are there any benefits? Like, let's try to have a deep dive into this for an employer who pays in cash.
They lose a lot of benefits because think about it. To manage your P&L as a business owner, you have to report your expenses.
Right.
Paying in cash, you can't report as an expense. So it's really important that you have proper record keeping, and payroll it's basically a tax record keeping system.
Correct.
To where I paid X amount of dollars to this employee. These are the taxes that I paid. Now here are my expenses, which helps reduce their tax liability at the end of the year.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, you're really not helping that person paying them cash. I mean, you want to look at it long term. How long do you really want to keep that person?
Right.
You know, because not everybody's going to stay, you know, forever working for somebody that's paying them cash. Because, you know, as an employee, you want to have benefits.
Right.
You know, you want to be able to retire one day.
Of course.
Right. Have some money saved up.
Right.
So that, you know, it all depends on where you're at in that situation.
This is something that you know, we wanted to talk a little bit more about, because a lot of our contractors do come from a Latinx background.
Yes.
And we do see it a lot. It's not uncommon that they get paid in cash. And so that's why I asked, because I wanted to as well keep driving that home as to what it is that they can ask for.
Yeah, so what I've come across, especially with some of my contractor clients, is that they pay their individuals in cash because they can't put them on payroll.
Okay.
Because they don't have a social security number, or their immigration status is just not fully there yet.
Right.
So it's a little difficult to try to put an individual like that in payroll. What I suggest is, you know, help that particular get to the proper status. I mean, if you know, I have had clients that started businesses with their right-hand man, right? And that right-hand man or woman happens to be that they don't have a social security number.
Okay.
As an employer, you can sponsor that individual to help them get to the immigration status where they need to be. So then they could start accruing some payroll benefits and stuff of that nature. So, you know, it depends on the situation. You know, again, with contractors, the majority pay them in cash because of the immigration status.
Right. So other than, you know, like you said, when it becomes a partnership and you try to help them out.
Absolutely.
Let's say for an employee who isn't a partner, is there anything that, at least within the state of New Jersey, that you can do for them?
Yeah, I mean, It's tough in New Jersey.
Okay.
Because, New Jersey's changed a lot of regulations. A lot of individuals as an employee work with TIN numbers. And before we were able to put TIN numbers on payroll.
Okay.
But now that has changed a little bit.
All right.
So it's tough. It's really tough to put them on a payroll structure in place. All I can do is offer them guidance and help them, to get on the right path. And, again, I as a business consultant, I work with a lot of partners. I have individuals that work with immigration. I have individuals that are attorneys. So I can guide them in the right direction to kind of help them get to where they want to get to.
Right. So that not all hope is lost. There are avenues, there are ways. It's just a matter of looking
and speaking to individuals that can guide you in the right direction.
And I'm glad we've touched up on this topic, because I know it can be intimidating. It can feel confusing because there's a lot of information, and it's a lot when everything's like, kind of put onto you all at once. You just like, I don't know what's going on. What am I going to do? And it's a lot to take in. So I'm glad we have you here to talk about these things. Let's see. Can we discuss more about how many employees does a company need to have to provide full benefits to?
That's a great question. That's as an entrepreneur, right? And as a business owner, you want to grow.
Correct.
Right. You want to grow. And part of the growing is there's going to be some growing pains. And once you reach over 50 employees, everything changes. Your whole structure changes. So then you need to offer minimum essentials for healthcare coverage. I help with that as well. For a client like that, we'll sit down and we'll analyze which is the best option for them. There's been times that we might recommend a PO option because healthcare for an employer is very expensive.
Right.
The rates go up annually. So there's cases where a PO might work better for them. Okay.
And I'm sorry, do you mind explaining what
Sure.
a
PO is basically, Paychex is an organization that's been around for 45 years. And we have a lot of buying power when it comes to, workers' comp coverage, healthcare coverage. Right. So that company would go under our Fed ID number, and we shop around the rates for them, which would be more competitive as opposed to them going out themselves to try to get a rate. Right. So think about
take them under their wing.
Exactly. So, that's depending on the company, it will determine if it's a fit, but that would be a good option for a business over 50 employees. Or we can put them in ASO, which is more human resource infrastructure. To where we can customize what benefits package we can provide them. So it all depends on the business, where they are, where they want to go.
Right.
So there are options out there.
What about the smaller business owners, like the family-owned businesses?
Yeah. So there are small group coverage that you can have, but it's optional. So it's not like, once you reach over 50 employees, now it's mandated. Now you have to have some type of coverage. You have to have documentation in place that you offered the coverage to your employees. And this is for full time. So that's really, really important that's in place. Now, if it's of a smaller and they want to have some type of health insurance, we have a small business division for health coverage, which I can, help them and guide them in the right direction and get them to plan for that type of group.
So it's on case-to-case basis with, it seems like everything pretty much, right?
Yes.
I want to, again, keep driving that home to everybody who is listening, because it's, sometimes we listen to somebody, or, this person said something and they have this. So when you hear a second opinion, it's like,
through that a lot.
I don't know if I should go through it,
and that's great thing you bring that up. I go through that a lot, because when I sit down on an initial consultation and they come and say, well, my friend does it this way, or, my brother told me to do it this way. And then I tell them, well, they're not doing it the right way. It's only a matter of time where they're going to get caught. So, educating yourself and having the professionals kind of guide you in the right direction, it's really imperative and critical for your business.
And it is important, because like I said, a lot of the times what happens is we, as a business owner and you have a lot happening, sometimes things just slip through the cracks, and it's unintentional.
Yes.
Nobody intentionally goes into doing certain things, and it happens. So it's always good to hire the professionals who are there specifically for that aspect.
Correct.
Yeah. So let's see. What about people like you talked about? My cousin does it on their own, or somebody like that.
Yeah.
How do you? I guess. As we know, like many businesses pay their employees hourly, right? That's what we were talking about earlier. What are some of the ways that that employers can track their employees like hourly, accuracy?
Yeah. That's a great question. So, I look at the business when I sit down. I look at the business, see what they do. So, for example, if their employees go out on the field, there are time and attendance solutions that I can put together for them. To where it's all geolocation based.
Wow.
So the employee goes into the job site, they clock in at the job site, and it goes into a GPS system. So whoever the administrator is can view what time they clocked in, what time they got to the job site for accuracy. And also that actually helps them budget the payroll. Because think about how many companies out there are losing thousands of dollars with the buddy punching and the incorrect timekeeping. So this tool allows them to kind of streamline in that process, and no buddy punching, none of that nature.
To me, that's awesome.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal what our technology can do now. Now, if you have employees that work in the same location, you could either have a kiosk. Especially now with the pandemic, they don't want to touch anything. We have an iris scan clock-in system, facial recognition. Yeah, so you stand in front of the little kiosk, it picks up that it's you, clocks you in, out you go.
Wow.
Or mobile punch.
Okay.
It's all geo-fenced, so the employee can't clock in from their house. They have to be inside the building in order to punch in and out. So those are the best timekeeping solutions out there right now, and they're getting more and more innovative.
Right. I know about the some of the older ones where you go in, like you said, you call somebody, because we've all been there. No, not gonna act and say, hey, I'm running 5 minutes.
Can you punch me in? Yeah.
No, but as a business owner, you don't realize it till you start tracking, and you're like, hey,
exactly.
this and this is
everything
happening.
it adds up. I think when we did an initial consultation with a client, and we determined that he was losing a year about $6,000 because of that improper timekeeping, the buddy punching, and it's a lot of money. It's definitely a lot of money. So it's definitely worth investing in the technology to kind of streamline that and eliminate the buddy punching and having proper timekeeping.
Right. And I think this is very important for those who are business owners who are listening to us, because you have your employees working hour to hour, not they go out to different sites, because that's usually what contractors do. They go from property to property and managing to see how you can always better your business. It's not necessarily always, and I don't believe that they're in place to be like, hey, you were there for an hour, what's going on? No, but improvement is always good, and making sure that your company is on the right track.
Correct.
To do what they have to do. That's, I think, what we have to take out of all of this.
Yes.
So we were talking about that. Like, what else? What would you suggest to somebody who wants to do their own payroll?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I do come across that a lot.
Okay.
And basically what happens is I ask them,
okay,
does that generate any revenue for you? Because, example, if it's a contractor, contractor wants jobs. They want more jobs. Okay. So it's very easy for them to make a mistake. And if you make a mistake on your payroll, it could be very costly for you.
Right.
So unless you have like an office administrator that's going to dedicate themselves to that, then yes, absolutely.
And human error happens.
And human error does happen. But, if that's something where how they want it structured, I do provide a software, which is our Flex software, where they can integrate all their employees, manage, a small HR within the system and run the payroll.
Okay.
The nice thing about our software that we talked about time clocks, everything integrates. So basically, if the employee is clocking in, automatically it feeds into the software. You as the administrator are able to manage that accordingly.
Wow.
Also, with a lot of small businesses, they use QuickBooks as their P&L.
Right.
All that data transfers automatically to their QuickBooks, so they don't have to manually try to type all that information in. Yeah.
So this is a great knowledge to have, especially right now with the way things are going.
Yeah.
When we're not sure if we're gonna, open up to 100% capacity again
Correct.
or not. These are great things to know. I know you said you have the software in place.
Yes.
And this is good because once you combine a something like you mentioned, where they can, track their hours accurately, and then you have another software.
Right.
It helps you, and there's less room for error.
Exactly.
When it comes to administrative stuff.
And that's the key. That's the key. Really, what can I outsource that is going to help me streamline my business process? Because that's the important part is what can I outsource and what can I integrate? Because there's times if you really look at an employee and you dissect their day, how many times are you looking, wow, I'm doing this like a lot, like multiple times, like take the information from here, take that same information and input it in over here. That's time consuming. Right. And you're paying that employee to do that. But if you streamline the process to where you input your data in one system and automatically integrates to the other system,
right.
Now you have that employee to do other projects,
right?
To make it more,
take care of the company.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think this is it's always great, and I think throughout time, at least me personally, I'm learning more and more of the importance of admin.
Yeah.
And how literally it's so powerful because it can make the business grow. I mean, hard work, let's not forget that, but let's not forget that it is important, but as well as keeping everything day-to-day task as well.
Admin is a very hard job. Anytime I sit down with an admin and I talk to them and I go, God bless you, because I know you have your hands full. And I'll give you an example. Last week I was with a client that had no idea that they had to collect sick hours for employees.
Okay.
And that's something that was launched by the state of New Jersey back in 2018.
Okay, so it's been some time.
Right. So I explained to her that, for every employee that you have that you're paying, for every 40 hours, that employee has to accrue 1 hour of sick time.
Okay.
And that's a state mandate. So a lot of small businesses don't know that. Don't know that. So you have to have a record keeping system to track that. So if me, Angel, is working for you and I've worked 40 hours, I have to show sick time available 1 hour.
Okay.
So that's something that I tell the admins, and they have no idea.
Right.
They have no idea.
Right. And I'm sure you could see it because when you said that, I'm like, wow, that's how that works. Because you always look at it and you're like, okay, you have accrued X amount of days for, I know some people have vacation days or sick leave, but I don't know if they call it as well.
Yeah.
But that's how that works. And it's important to know because I assume that also affects your employees knowing that they have that security.
Exactly. And then this is where we start getting into the HR side of things because, okay, now you have all this, you have vacation time, sick time. This is where it's a good idea, no matter how small your business is, to have an HR handbook in place, with policies and procedures, time off, rules or allocations, what benefits you have. At the end of the day, that employee handbook can protect the assets of the business.
Right.
Because if, there was an issue with an employee and it goes to court, the first thing the judge is going to ask, do you have a legally reviewed handbook? Okay. And you don't want to go there empty-handed. Right. And I see that a lot. I see that a lot. Yeah.
That's interesting. So every business, no matter how small you are, have one on hand.
Have it. And that's the nice thing about our software.
Okay.
That when you come on board with me, I give you that option. Okay. I give you the option where you can write your own employee handbook, and
Okay.
it's done by our corporate attorneys.
Okay.
Basically, it's almost like a wizard. So you take your
Okay.
policies and you customize it to the business. Just don't change any verbiage around because it was done by an attorney.
Okay.
Or now that you're more established, you have a bigger employee count, we can come in and assign you an HR generalist to your company.
Okay.
And they do everything for you. They'll come in, they'll walk you through the policies and procedures, the do's and don'ts,
Right.
proper hiring, firing, protocols. So it all depends on the type of business and the size of the business.
Wow.
On how we can structure that for them.
That's awesome to know. And I think it's important to know because not everybody knows. I know I personally didn't know.
Yeah.
And I'm learning a lot.
Yeah.
A lot today. I'm learning a lot, and I know those who are watching us, because we have this in audio and in video as well, are going to be learning as well. So we learn about accuracy of hours. We're learning about how to do it. That there's softwares. Do you know of any other apps perhaps that they can use if for whatever reason they want to trust? Sometimes it's easier to go on your phone and you could do it that way.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of apps out there. You just have to be able to, what does it do, right? So if you want it just to calculate the gross to net as far as payroll, there's a lot of apps out there that you can Google and search. But the key is withholding the correct amount and making the proper payments to the IRS and the state of New Jersey. Does that app do that for you? Does it, or do you have to do it manually? Do you have to, does the app file your 941 returns for you, or do you have to do that manually? So you have to really look at it is how much can I do and how much I want them to do for me.
Okay.
So that it all depends. There's definitely a lot of apps out there. There's a lot of software out there that you can buy and do everything yourself. So it's all on, how much responsibility do I really want to take upon myself to do this?
Okay. So that's, it's doable. It's
Definitely.
doable, but it's intimidating at the same time.
Of course, especially now, 2020 has been an exciting year, right? and a lot of regulations have changed. A lot of employment laws has changed. Now companies have to take safety protocols to bring back employees to work.
Right.
So what trainings have you put in place, for those employees to feel comfortable coming back to work?
Right.
So that's the big topic now, and is there any OSHA certification compliance in place? So those are the things that are happening right now. And those are the things that a lot of small business owners are not doing.
Right.
So, it just, you just want to be able to protect your business. That's
anything.
From
right?
anything.
Right. Okay.
From anything.
Okay. Now, I know we talked about, 2020 being the most exciting year thus far. Hopefully it's the last one. What trends in the state of New Jersey have you seen that, have changed the way businesses do their payroll? Yeah.
So I've seen a lot where, I think we spoke about this off air. A lot of businesses are going into the virtual role.
Okay.
Right. So now that changes a lot because now I have to keep track of that employee virtually. I got to keep track of their hours. I'm paying them hourly. Right. So then this is where you have a lot of these accountability softwares that go into place that helps that business owner keep track of that employee. You want to make sure they're working. Right. They're being productive. So, we help them with that. Now, as far as trend in the payroll aspect is a lot of self-service.
Okay.
Which basically means as an employee, you have access to your information through our app.
Okay.
And basically, let's say you get married, you have to change your marital status. You go into the app and change it yourself.
Okay.
If you want to change your withholding, you go into the app and you change it yourself. Right. Wow. You can do that now because, now there's no, let me just go across the office because, everybody's either working from home or they're at a job site. So a lot more self-service is being seen out there to employees and employers that are offering it. So as an employer, you want to make sure you have a self-service system to kind of streamline that process. All right. You want to eliminate paperwork as much as possible.
Now, do you find that with the self-serving, apps and softwares and everything that there is, do you find it to be more educating, or do you feel like it's becoming a little bit of a challenge for businesses?
I guess it would depend on the business. Some of the older business owner, it is a challenge because they're not technologically savvy with it. With the millennials, it's a little bit easier because now self-service is almost expected. With I'll do it myself. Online banking. I mean, it's all expected. So it all depends on the demographics behind it. On if that business owner is technologically savvy or not. So what I pretty much do is I always do like a training, on the software. I'll come in, we'll do a one-on-one or virtually. And I kind of walk them through on the employee viewing and also the employer as an administrator. So
they're being guided. It isn't necessarily where you have them on their own, where they have to here you go. Okay, goodbye. I'll see you later. You let me know how it goes. That's good to know because there's a lot of changes happening. And now, it varies from state to state throughout the country. So, as far as for when we first started, with everything that's happening today, we saw, start work from home if possible. Continue to work at your local office if possible. And then it goes from keeping, like you said, your workers safe, implementing all these rules. So it's always something new. And I think having that time to constantly update yourself. And that's critical. That's so critical. And this is what I try to offer all my clients is that constant education, right? Oh, by the way, guys, January minimum wage goes up $12, like things like that. It's important to have that resource available. Software is also available. Through our Flex software, you have an HR platform to where if you need to know any specific law throughout the United States, state specific, you can go in there and you can trust that information. The worst thing you can do as a business owner or as a business admin is try to Googling it because that sometimes is not really accurate at 100%. You want to make sure that you're making your decision based on facts, not based on someone else's opinion. Because that's what we see a lot. It becomes very opinion based rather than factual. Which again, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with doing your due diligence where you check a few sources. But knowing that the one source that you are checking is fact checked and it is law based, which is when it comes to a business, that I think is the most important thing. Making sure that you are within compliance at all times. At all times. So, we've talked about a lot of things today, and I've learned a lot. And I'm like, whoa, how does that everybody do it? And you've been with us for a while, and as we learned today, again, I keep saying it, payroll is an important pillar for any business. So is HR. Even though sometimes we don't realize how small the business is, that we need it. And you've also you've witnessed and you've been a part of our journey.
I have.
When we started from, the idea phase to having the website. So now we have the app.
Definitely has grown.
It's been a journey to say the least. How do you believe that our app will help business owners in the contracting?
Firstly, congratulations.
Thank you.
Because it definitely, since we sat down in the restaurant and you guys shared the idea, and now to see it in fruition is just surreal. So congratulations on that. And it's very beneficial because when I sit down with contractors, the first thing is, I can't pay this employee because this client hasn't paid me, right? So what you offer to these contractors and having that database there in place, it's just phenomenal. And just to see the actual logo and to see the website coming along and the app coming along, it's great. And I think it's definitely going to be beneficial for a lot of contractors out there.
Thank you. I really do appreciate that. I know, like you said, it is a trickle down effect. To where it's not everybody. Not everybody does it. It happens a lot though. Where I cannot pay my employees because I'm not receiving payment.
Right.
And I know you work with a lot of contractors.
Yes.
If you were to, like, let's say put I wouldn't say a percentage or number, but if like a rough estimate of, as a specialist, how many times do you see that happening?
A lot.
Okay.
Because I sit down with a lot of the contract clients, and in one of my discussions with them is, tell me about your specialty, tell me about your process.
Okay.
And I would say 1 out of 3 will have that issue.
Okay.
They're still, waiting on payment, or they'll call me, say, oh, can we not process the payroll because I'm waiting for the funds to come in from this other person. Now that's where it gets hard as a business owner, because now you don't have the money there, but now your employee's screaming at you because they want to get paid.
Right.
So that's where your app would help, because now it allows them to make better decisions on what clients they can help and work for.
Right.
Because you want to manage that cash flow. And you want to be able to retain your employees, because now if your employee leaves, now you can't finish the job.
Right. And now you're just, not only do you not have employees, now, with the customer or the client, you're just like, it's a battle.
It is.
It's definitely a battle. It's a lot of it happening. And I mean, I don't know. It's definitely hard.
Yes.
It's definitely hard. And I'm just, as we're talking about it, I'm just trying to wrap my mind and thinking about it. And I'm feeling it for the contractors.
Yes.
When I know we talked about a lot, I have to stop payroll this week. Does that affect the business?
Okay, so that's a great question, because I do see that a lot. For seasonal, for employers that are coded at seasonal. Okay. Basically, what happens is you're still have your payroll account active. Okay. But you're not paying any taxes. So what you have to do is you send a 0 return to the state and the IRS, just letting them know I'm still operating, but not with employees. Okay. Right? Your business is still open, so you send them a 0 return, a 941 0 return, and a New Jersey return 0 return, just letting them know. For the ones that stop completely and then open up and they don't send that 0 return, it does cause them to open up themselves for audits, because what happens is when those 0 returns are not sent, just to let them know that you're seasonal, you'll get that letter, that infamous letter, right, from the IRS or the state of New Jersey. Okay. We're missing third quarter 941. Okay. What happened? So it affects them in that end. But if you're just not working because it's the off season, you just code it as seasonal, and then continue having the payroll service, the payroll provider, send those 0 returns.
Got it. So now, is that something that you have to establish, like, as soon as you open the business, like how we had talked previously? Right.
So, yeah. So basically, we talk and we'll say, well, my business is going to operate all year round. Okay, no problem. So there's clients that have household, employers. So like, whether it's a nurse or a maid or anything like that. So we code them as household, which kind of changes the structure a little bit. And for landscapers, if they don't work during the winter, then we code them as seasonal. Okay. And, do it that way. And then when they start back up March, April, then we reactivate the withholdings.
Okay. So it's something that can be done.
Absolutely.
Now, do they have to let you know in advance, or is it like, can I call you tomorrow and be like, hey, don't do it?
You gotta let us know in advance. Because it has to be coded in the system as seasonal. Oh. So it's definitely that part's really, really important, because again, you don't want to receive those letters. I mean, it could easily be fixed, but it's just it's a pain to have those letters, and now because sometimes you won't receive those notices until 2 years from now, 3 years from now. Wow. So to go back and say, oh man, I don't remember 2016's third quarter if I worked or not. So now you have to go to your accountant or go to your consultant and see if you did have a payroll in place or you did not have a payroll in place. So that's where record keeping is important.
Right. Wow. Yeah. That is. Does that happen a lot?
Of course. It does happen.
That's very, very interesting. I had no knowledge of that, but it's definitely, I mean, like I said, people don't do it on purpose, because you never go into business and say, I want to do this and this.
Right.
No, and a lot of it happens, like we said, because the money isn't there, the cash flow isn't there.
Right.
So it's definitely good to educate yourself, to know what you need to have a specialist. Yes. I believe in my
100%.
opinion. Yeah. So now that we're coming closer to the end, and I've learned a lot. I know people at home.
I'm constantly learning.
And keeping yourself always updated. We ask every guest that we have with us to share some tips, even though you shared a lot of info.
Yeah.
But if you can have like the top 3, what would they be?
Yeah. So definitely have an HR infrastructure in place. So even if you have one employee, just one, doesn't matter if they're a family member, mother, father. It's if they're not part of the business, if they're not owner of the business, have an HR infrastructure in place. And it's a common misconception that HR is expensive, but that you can manage yourself.
Right.
Just knowing where to get the documentation, the correct education. You can train yourself on an HR as a small business owner. We provide the tools, for you. So definitely have something in place. Don't have nothing in place.
Right.
I even tell a lot of my, clients that have 1 or 2 employees, you should have a HR handbook.
Right.
You should definitely have it in place. Invest in that. Definitely have it, put it in place, because ultimately that's going to protect you. That's the way you want to see it. You definitely want to be protected. Stay up to date with the new federal and state regulations, because it's going to impact your business. One way or another, it's going to impact it. So you definitely want to have a resource available to you to stay up to date.
Okay.
Number 3 would be look for ways to implement pre-tax benefits to help you as the company and retain top talent. Simple 401k. A lot of my small business clients think that having a 401k, you have to match. You don't have to match. Absolutely not. That's not a requirement. You can offer a 401k plan to an employee. They save for retirement. Once your business grows where you can see that you can match, then you can implement a match. And overall, that helps you, and it helps you retain talent. So when you're a small business and you come and say, well, we do offer a retirement plan for you, that's huge. That is big, because there's big companies that don't even offer it. So think about how you separate yourself from everybody else, that, we put together a retirement plan and it's affordable, and now you're retaining top talent, because you need top talent to grow. Right.
So that's definitely key. Like you said, those are great tips.
Thank you.
That, I think when you're a small business owner, it just goes right through your head.
It does.
You have a lot of happening.
A lot is going on.
So once again, thank you for all of your information and all of your knowledge. So if somebody was, want to acquire of your services, how can they contact you?
Yeah. So my telephone number is 732-425-5144. I'm open to consultations. We could do it via Zoom, or we could do it in person, following safety protocols, of course. And the consultation's free. We just kind of sit down, we dissect your business, and I'll find solutions for you.
Okay. And could you repeat that number one more time?
Sure. It's 732-425-5144.
Okay. Thank you. And for those who are watching our video, we will link all of his description below as well, so that way you can find his email address and other information that he has to share. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in for another episode of the Contractor Scout Podcast. We will see you next week.
Thank you for tuning into the Contractor Scout Podcast, presented by Property Reputation. Gracias por escuchar The Contractor Scout Podcast, presentado por Property Reputation. Visite our website, visite nuestra página www.property-reputation.com.